let me tell you about
Jet Set Radio!
At the turn of the millennium, a few of Sega's in-house R&D departments dissolved into various other development teams that Sega then pulled together into 6 subsidiary studios. Sega WoW, Sega AM2, Hitmaker, Amusement Vision, Sonic Team, and then one important for today's video, Smilebit, a team composed of members from the Panzer Dragoon staff who during their time made a few gems within the early aughts. The crew was small and young, with the average age being around 25, which meant they were fresh to the scene and had some bold ideas. They wanted to stand out from their team's previous efforts like the Panzer Dragoon saga. They wanted something young and hip with little edge, kind of like a certain Blue Blur, but with a different source of inspiration in the world of hip-hop and graffiti culture, all along with showcasing a desire to portray a totalitarian dystopia to nail down an anti-establishmentarianism message at its core. There were some growing pains initially, getting a balance between concept of the art versus game design. Hell, the game initially started as a skateboarding title, but was changed to give characters more freedom of movement. After pulling together those themes and switching to rollerblades, along with heavy visual inspiration from aspects within Tokyo districts, the game was released in June of 2000 to immense praise upon release and stands as one of Sega's most underutilized assets. I'm talking about the Dreamcast classic Jet Set Radio, or Jet Grind Radio, as it was called in the States.
Let's look at the fun.
This is another great execution of a quirky concept done in a video game, you know. During the extreme sports craze of the late 90s, I like that Sega decided to not follow that trend and do something involving rollerblades. And I feel like that design philosophy carried really well into some of the more eccentric moments of Jet Set Radio, a game that has an incredible soundtrack, a great use of its art style, and great way to show off a dystopia. Because the game starts off, it puts you in Shibuya-cho, an area that's very bright and shiny. You know, while the cops seem like a small problem now, the more that you play the game, the more intense their involvement becomes at stopping you from spreading a message that isn't their totalitarian style. Similarly to Mirror's Edge, a game that also uses a bright color palette to show off a very aesthetically pleasing look within a totalitarian dystopia, Jet Set Radio's focus on graffiti influence with an anime twist, I think, works spades at showing off the difference in tone versus presentation of that tone. And when the game does decide to get dark graphically, they use the jagged edges so incredibly well. I'm talking about the final boss fight with Rokaku, or the New York section, the America section, where they show off a different perspective of people already going through what is only starting in the world of Tokyo-to. I like the overall character design in this game, both the rival gangs in general. The noise tanks, I think, look so cool in Benton-cho, fits them incredibly well. Same with Poison Jam and Kogane-cho. Like, the overall look of the rival gangs in their respective areas fits really well. I think that the base of this game is so very good. I know that other people may like how it's done more in a different version of this game that I'll talk about here in a few minutes, but I actually like how graffiti is handled in this game more. You know, I like that the simple graffiti, the small graffiti, is still the one button push. You know, it makes sense for the quick tags you've got to make when filling out a map, because that's the other big component of this. You've just got to find places to tag, and I think that that's a fun way to learn a level, especially in the moments where the tension does ram up as you continue to tag when the police come and all that sort of stuff, and it helps sort of you get good at doing the small tags so that when you go to the boss fights later on, the boss fights against the rival gangs in their arenas, it makes you feel attuned to that style of gameplay. But I also like how they juxtapose that with how bigger graffiti is tackled, with the spinning of the sticks to sort of mirror the you spray painting on, you know, places that you're tagging. I feel like it's a good two different ways to approach doing the same action. And I like how, while each level starts off small and you sort of explore it in pockets, the later levels of the game have you utilizing the entire space of an area, and you could use that time to explore even more to find secrets and stuff.
I also like how unlocking characters in this game goes about, how you have to kind of follow them on their own line in a horse-style thing. You have to hit all the same spots they do. I think it's a good way to sort of show off a character, show off their moves or how they look and also show you other aspects of an area you may have not thought to think to explore before.
I don't know, man. I think that from a design aspect, this game has a concept and it executes it incredibly well on Jet Set Radio. You know, I really enjoy a lot of components of the gameplay aspect of this game. The story itself, it's a bit broad as far as, like, it's just you overthrowing a creeping totalitarian police presence. But and there's this other evil corporation coming in, but they feel like themes that still feel kind of relevant today, you know what I mean? And I'll get to that in a bit too. But this game itself, it's a lovely sort of presentation of a serious subject. And I love the art. I actually like the graffiti art in this game a lot too, and I like how they have the create your own graffiti portion as well, but unlocking the graffiti through the collectibles in the game. I love the variety of graffiti styles in the art here as well. I think it's incredible. Again, that soundtrack, Hideki Naganuma kills it on this. Obviously, I've rapped over one of the songs on this.
I'm the best that I've been in a minute, spitting meta text, aiming to finish the vision so consistent that you'll never see me slipping.
I also mashed up another song with a different song from Splatoon at one point. And while I like some of the non-Hideki stuff from this game, I do like the non-Hideki stuff more in a version of this game that came out after Jet Set Radio that helps sort of reaffirm its influence or staying power as a title with Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox. And let me tell you, while I like Jet Set Radio Future, I also kind of hate that it's just the same game with a different aesthetic and some tweaks made to the style. I don't mind the flash graffiti for even the big stuff. I just prefer the stick waving. I don't mind the grimy look of the art style in this game. I just prefer the bright colors showcased in Jet Set Radio. I think the character designs are pretty comparable. I do like, by and large, a lot of the character designs from Jet Set Radio more. I think Beat looks better. I think Garam looks better. I like the green outfit that Gum has going on. I think Potts the dog looks really cool in this. I think Combo looks really cool in both games, but I like him a lot in Jet Set Radio more. I think DJ Professor K, who is another big component of the music being so awesome. DJ Professor K is like the focal point for the story itself. He tells you about how the world evolves, and it sort of cements storytelling with the music in a really strong way and shows that music is as much a big component of this game as the art is, and I appreciate that as, again, somebody who really likes music. And I really like DJ Professor K as a narrator, as a guider through the story. I like that he's just this energetic radio presence that just exists in this world.
So at this point in the video, I shifted from talking about DJ Professor K in the game to this Twitter account that does follow me. They follow everything Jet Set Radio related, and they used to just play this meta game on this site that they ran about Jet Set Radio and just help promote fan content. But for a while, they got bogged down in anti-vax stuff, and I didn't like that. But now they're back to just supporting this, very passionate community around this game that I love to see, and I'm happy that it's there. And I'm glad that the account's seemingly gone back to normal.
I think that, again, similarly to games like Katamari Damacy and The World Ends With You, they take a very specific visual style, soundtrack style, and gameplay loop and gameplay approach through controls and stuff, and tackle it incredibly well. They stick the landing. I did a playthrough of this game years ago because I loved this game so much I wanted to show it off. I think that it's a classic in so many ways. And while, again, it's not anything too dense or meaty story-wise, like there's set pieces in this game that I like. I love the flow of Shibuya-cho from the bus station to the sewers. I love the arena of Inkogane-cho where you fight Poison Jam. I think that the valley in Benton-cho where you fight the helicopter is really cool. But there aren't as many grand memorable moments as there were in games like The World Ends With You. This is very much just like an approach to game design that I really appreciate. And kind of wanted to sit here and talk to you about today, along with showing more love for the soundtrack, because I really appreciate the soundtrack of this game and how it melds stuff like electronic sounds, turntablism, vintage funk, weird dark vocal opera sampling in on this soundtrack that flows so incredibly well and sets a mood, a variety of moods as it were, under this umbrella as well. That bass loop on humming the bass line is incredible. You know, I like that in the America sections they had that remix of Dragula, which was one of my first exposures to Dragula, on that soundtrack, and it fits because he's like a Western voice in an area very heavily inspired by the West. You know, there's just little touches like that that I really enjoy in Jet Set Radio. And again, the set piece in New York, in general, the Times Square level, is probably one of my favorite set pieces in the game, if only because it's so vertical and it has you challenging climbing the level on the rollerblades so incredibly well. There's a ramp up in difficulty on this for sure, and I feel like and the increased militaristic presence of the police obviously helps increase the difficulty as well, but just the level design in general in that stage is another great moment. Because jumping off of that, the visual style of this game feels like it was very influential to a handful of things, whether it is parts of Splatoon.
Hell, you could even argue the basic archetype for the concept of Splatoon as far as covering the land in a side of paint could have been rooted in a game like Jet Set Radio.
That new game, Knockout City, feels like it's trying to cop a similar sort of sharp, cel-shaded aesthetic without being cel-shaded. It feels rooted in the same influences of Jet Set Radio in a big way. But the soundtrack as well also feels influential because, you know, Hideki Naganuma has his own style of sound composition. You could tell that just from listening to Sonic Rush alone.
And while I did throw a lot of love to Hideki's pieces specifically in the soundtrack, I also do love Richard Jacques' contributions, and I think the two of them together just pulled together this harmonious marriage of a bunch of different styles under one umbrella perfectly.
But the very sample-heavy, rooted in hip-hop soundtrack was very impactful to me as a kid playing this in the early 2000s, but also it feels like it helped sort of throttle stuff again like Splatoon soundtrack at points.
I'd also be fucking up if I didn't talk about Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, a game that seemingly wrought from the ashes of the absence of Jet Set Radio. It has a very similar aesthetic. The soundtrack is very buoyant and funky while having sample infusion seemingly. It's the most influenced by Jet Set Radio any other game has been before it. And it looks great. I think it looks like a lot of fun, and I hope that it comes together incredibly well. As good as it looks, I'm hoping that it plays just as well.
But yeah, what do you think of Jet Set Radio? Do you like this game? Do you have a favorite moment? Do you have a favorite character? Garam is my favorite character. Obviously, he's a sick dude with alien eyes. That's awesome. But yeah, what do you think of Jet Set Radio? Do you like it? Do you not? Let me know in those comments down below. If you did like this review or this reflection breakdown sort of thing on Jet Set Radio, let me know with a like or your thoughts in the comments down below. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdy content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Valrak. You guys are good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.